Let's circle back to Anambra elections. Joining us now in the studio is the political analyst, Professor Nwanegbo Chukwuemeka, who is, of course, in the Situation Room throughout the election, closely monitoring developments as they unfolded. Great to have you join us here. You were in the Situation Room all through the election. How would you sum up what you saw? Was it smooth overall, or were there a few surprises along the way?
Thank you very much for having me. I think what has played out in the Anambra 2025 election, from our observation in the past 6 months, really have just confirmed the trend. There are no surprises. The only area yesterday that we had from the beginning of the process, some of us who had followed the elections in the last 3-4 elections that actually predicted that the winner of this election was obviously going to win. And secondly, we also had predicted the high level of use of funds in the polling units. Thirdly, we predicted that there was not going to be any part of violence at all. I think the first two predictions worked out well. The last one we appear to have failed because of some reports of some pockets of violence here and there. But so far, not bad.
Now, compared to other elections, previous elections in Anambra, did you notice any big improvements or recurring challenges this time around?
Oh, yeah, sure. Let me start with challenges and I'll come to improvement. Challenges, the state of mobilization yesterday, as at 8:30, by the record that was picked up from the Situation, we had about less than 25% polling units being ready and up and running. And the plan, even as was announced by INEC as of Thursday, was that the officers were going to be on the field and that by 8:30 at dot, the process will start. It was about 10:30 that we recorded about 95% of the polling units activities starting in earnest, meaning that about 5% started quite late. Then secondly, from the positive angle, the turnout in yesterday's election was a substantial improvement to what was observed in the last 2021 election. At least this time around, from the calculation, we have over 500 and some fraction thousand persons. I'm not having the record of it now, but 500 and beyond 500,000 to 600,000 persons that participated in the voting. That the winner got 400 and something thousand, about 600,000 votes. So it's an improvement in terms of state of participation. Soludo won with 422,604. And then you can see APC, you see YPP, and then ADC. So put together, the last election, the entire vote cast, both for the winner and others, was within the range of 400,000. So yes, in terms of participation, there was an improvement. Then thirdly, let me also say that from the record we picked yesterday, both on the field and the Situation Room, in the cities here at Oka, we had a substantial number of security operatives on ground. From a survey, we had a minimum of 3 from almost each of the polling units. The other samples that we picked from Ayamelum, from Anambra West, and some other areas, it wasn't that much, though, but at least there were presence of police operatives in almost every polling unit. In fact, yesterday we were making some allusions and some computation that was giving us about 17,000 men on ground. If we use those samples to generalize, that some of us were beginning to worry as to where the 45,000 policemen that were drafted to Anambra State, or supposedly to Anambra State, really worked. And I think that's an issue that we need to really look at going forward at the Institutes for Peace and Conflict. We are going to start interrogating that because, but by and large, with that number of security personnel, one would have expected, and that was why some of us predicted there was not going to be any kind of violence. So when the report about shooting at Urumba South and whatever came up, we are feeling, well, maybe this is not related to election. Maybe it's something else. Maybe it's a community issue. Maybe it's a business issue. But happening that same day with such number of security personnel on the field was not a very good one. So we need to also improve on that direction.
All right. Now, Professor Soludo didn't just win, he actually swept all 21 local governments. What, in your own opinion, would you say drove that kind of, landslide victory?
Well, essentially, there are two major factors. One, Anambra, since 2003, 2004 down to 2005, became established as an APGA state, especially at the governorship line. Established in a form that I was telling colleagues yesterday when we were talking about women and contesting election, being in the right election, right party or wrong party. Anambra really, in a governorship election, is a state where you can really be either in a wrong party or in a right party. If you understand that the research indicates that 35% of electoral victory are determined by the political party one belongs to. In other words, today in Anambra State, if you present a goat, which means somebody who don't even have a name to contest election, and that person is flying on the ticket of APGA, he will make at least 35% of the vote cast in an election. This is scientifically proved. Scientifically proved. I also want to tell you that the most that the APC did yesterday, if you look at their record, was because of the growing influence of APC in many of the areas of Anambra State. In the past, APC wouldn't have gotten near to where they got to. So he had advantage of being in the party. An average woman and my Anambra State talks about APGA. And they don't even need to know who is contesting. What they need to know is we are voting APGA and they are voting APGA. For now, until it can change though, but the change will also have to be that level of systematic and fundamental change that will draw some also some time for it to adjust. Second one, and very importantly, beyond the political party angle, secondly, we have the advantage of the zoning. The zoning advantage, even though this zoning is not official, but in Anambra, Governor Peter Obi was able, Mr. Peter Obi then as the governor, was able to establish some semblance of zoning. When he finished and insisted that the movement has to go to north, and from north move to south, from south it should go back to central after the next 4 years. So lots of persons have this argument going. If you truncate the north, the south now, and return back to north again, you have killed the zoning. If you want to stay in the south and you go to another candidate like the APC candidate, you may be running into the danger of his finishing the first term and wanting to take a second term. And that will delay the period that Anambra Central is supposed to produce their own governor. So you see some kind of a concerted activity, especially from Central. Look at the voting activity in Central. Even though Central is not to that extent, Central is where Peter Obi came from. Central is where past former Governor Ngige came from. Central used to be the dominant value of PDP activities, but they all came together and said, let the Anambra South take their second tenure and go. Under the only person we are sure will not want to return for another tenure. That also gave me an advantage. Thirdly, and very importantly, like I said, as was observed yesterday, there was a flagrant use of money. And that money was a major inducer. In fact, when we had the roving activities yesterday, when we moved through to some areas within Oka and its environs, we also observed a unique system of this money given. When they didn't necessarily need to be at the polling units, they will be somewhere around and people will vote. And there was a systematic way of showing what was voted for. And then the person will go to the back somewhere and collect his money or her money. The only unfortunate part is that this show, we that were observers came within the short period, we noticed what was happening. And we know that security men also know what was happening. Ad hoc staff knew what was happening. And there was no effort made by anybody to stop that or to insulate that process in a way that people could not.
Thank you very much, Professor, for having this conversation with us.
Thank you very much.